Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. Back in the win column in record-breaking fashion. Nothing sweeter than a rivalry win start to finish. But without further ado, let's run it. This one ends in a final score of Purdue 93, Indiana 64. Beatdown, BTA, utter domination, whatever you want to call it. I think the most important stat from it, though, is the biggest margin of victory in this rivalry since 1969, which, by the way, Purdue scored 120 points in that game, 120 to 76. Also, just so happens to be the Purdue team that lost in the national championship game to none other than Lou Alcindor, soon to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and the UCLA Bruins. Just some, interesting context to that. But it was an amazing game all around in this one, limiting Indiana pretty well defensively outside of their four double-digit scores, who scored pretty much all of their points, while also setting a new record for best single game shooting percentage in Matt Painter's 21 years as Purdue head coach. All I can say about that.
Sensational.
It felt like this game had some highlight opportunities when Braden and Fletcher opened this one with back-to-back threes in the first 2 minutes. That really set the tone for the whole night. We held them right around kind of that 6-point lead for the first 10 minutes while our offense stalled a little bit, and then the offense really started clicking. We went from 15 points in the first 10 minutes to 31 in the final 10 of the half, and TKR took over for some tough buckets. You could really just tell he was on one this game. It was great to watch. The emotions and energy were visible, and he was just attacking them every single play whenever he got the ball. Braden, Fletch, Omer, just everybody really had it going. The free throw line also did help. We got them in foul trouble early, and they pretty much just kind of kept it up all game long, although tailed off a bit in the second half. Some weird calls, both four fouls and also some no calls, at least early on. They started calling the game loose, kind of letting them play for a couple of tough possessions early in the first half, but then they flipped the script entirely and started calling fouls for what seemed like everything. 14 first half fouls for IU, 22 on the night. Connor Enright fouled out in only 19 minutes. Bailey ends up playing through a lot with four. And it sent Purdue to the line time and time again. A big positive from the first half and kind of the game as a whole was seeing us take advantage from the mid-range. That was something that has been missing a lot more recently in some of these recent matchups. You saw Braden, Fletch, and Omer all find success kind of around the free throw line, or of course with Braden's patented baseline fadeaway. That was something that it felt like we kind of got away from recently, or just couldn't really knock down. But the second half was all inside out. Clough, Jacobson, and TKR all got buckets in and around the rim, while Omer Meyer lit it up from the three-point line. And it was truly one of those games where if Painter wanted to be the villain, he could have, put away the nice guy act for a game. Probably could have scored 110, but he didn't. Instead, he went to possibly the even more disrespectful route and let the walk-on see the floor for the final minutes. And it was glorious to watch Aaron Fine get a bucket in his first minutes in this rivalry. But going into some of the team stats, IU ends up shooting 52% from the floor and 35% from three, which all in all, the margin of victory looked horrible. You lose by almost 30, but they didn't really shoot all that horrible. That's right above their averages for the year. They averaged 47% from the floor and 34.8% from three. So overall, they didn't shoot all that worse than usual for them. I think the disparity comes from the fact that Purdue had an amazing night, and also they definitely lost out on a couple of possessions based on some of their turnovers, and that obviously does not help them down the line. Free throw shooting, they were 9 for 15, good for 60%, which is unusual for them because they are actually a good free throw shooting as a free throw shooting team, averaging just over 78% from the free throw line. I think it was a combination of things just not going well for them, as well as Smacky Arena. It was loud. The paint crew had it going once again. It was amazing to see. I'm sure it was a fantastic environment to be in, especially because of the fact that we just straight up dominated all 40 minutes. But I mentioned those turnovers. They did have 11 turnovers on the game, which is not all that unusual for them. They averaged 10, but it certainly felt like some of them came at pretty big moments in terms of Purdue being able to capitalize off of them, and really sort of, take that and continue building on the lead that we had already built. But looking at Purdue, Like I mentioned, we shot 65% from the floor, which was a record. I guess I mentioned the record, but not the percentage. 65%. It was fantastic to watch. I mean, you had guys going in all different cylinders. Trey goes 8 for 10 on his route to another 20-point game. Perfect from Clough. CJ and let's see, CJ and Jack Benter and Jakari Harris were kind of the main three that really didn't quite get going. But when you can talk about those three being the only guys that really didn't get going, that at least received significant minutes, that's kind of insane. Braden goes 5 for 10. We'll talk about this on some of the individual stats, but we just had all areas clicking, especially, from the 3-point line. 56% from three, 10 for 18. I think the big thing to highlight from that is I felt like we chose to shoot good threes, not every possible three. And so many recent games, we've just been chucking up threes because teams were doing a good job of either taking away the interior or even taking away the ability for us to navigate the ball screen and get some of those mid-range shots that Omer and Braden especially love, but even Fletcher got that going a little bit in this one. It was great to see us really be a three-level scoring team again. We were no longer the two-dimensional or even one-dimensional that it felt like we have been at times recently. The rebounding battle, fantastic. There wasn't as many rebounds in this game total, partially because Purdue shot the ball so well, and like I said, Indiana didn't even shoot that horribly. But we dominated when there was the opportunities. We out-rebounded them 30 to 15, doubled them. 6-1 on the offensive end, so only giving up one offensive rebound is a drastic improvement. Even to, the last matchup, they had 6 offensive rebounds in that one. We had 9, so, we had a little bit more of our own. But the big thing is, limiting offensive rebounds is amazing for limiting momentum or, especially trying to come back in a game. When they miss, make that their only opportunity. It keeps the momentum high, it keeps the spirits high. It allows us to get out going in transition, which is just amazing for us. And on the defensive end, we out rebounded them 24 to 14. So again, that goes right back into what we were saying about, limiting their offensive rebounds. But also we took advantage on the offensive end as well, limiting their defensive rebounds. So overall, you have nothing to complain about when you're able to double a team's rebounds, whether it's a high rebound game and you're rebounding in the 50s, or if it's low and it's 30 to 15. Next thing is the free throw line, which we shot a lot of free throws, which again, unusual for us. More recently, it's been a bit of a theme, which is kind of interesting. I think we're just facing some kind of more physical defenses. And I think this one was really a bit of ref ball. I think on both sides, truly, there were some fouls called on Indiana that I was like, I don't know about that one. I'll take it, but I don't know. They really got some really tight positions. I think there was one where Braden drove and just kind of brought the ball up into it might have been Enright in that situation or somebody else where I'm not so sure if I agreed with some of them, but there was just a lot of fouls, especially in the first half. They had 14 fouls in the first half alone, which put Purdue in the bonus and double bonus, and then only 8 in the second half. But I think Purdue got to the line a little bit more just kind of getting to the basket, whether it be driving to the lane or getting our guys going inside TKR, Clough, and Jacobson. But we only shot 17 for 25, 68%, making 17 free throws, great. Missing 8 of them, not as great. But when you shoot that many free throws, obviously it's more opportunities to miss, and I think it kind of speaks more to the guys who did miss them. Unfortunately, TKR had been doing, significantly better, it felt like, from the free throw line recently, either shooting perfect or only missing like 1, maybe 2. Well, he got to the line 8 times and missed 4 of them. So he himself was, 4 of those 8 misses. And you had Braden and Fletch both perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Jacobson was 50% as well. He was 2 for 4. And then you got missed end of a front one, missed front end of a 1-and-1 from Jack Benter. He was 0 for 1 from the free throw line, and Jakari Harris went 1 for 2. So the story of that was more kind of two guys being the majority of the struggle than it was really the team struggling. So I'm not too worried about that. More pleased with the fact that we got to the free throw line 25 times. That is always going to be a recipe for success against any opponent, because A, you're going to start causing them foul trouble, which we caused plenty of foul trouble for them, as well as, it's just free shots. It's the only way you can get a shot without any amount of defense on it. And no matter how good of a free throw shooting team you are, it's a drastically important part of the game, especially in March, which is coming up oh so fast. But for the assists, we also had 24 assists on 33 made field goals. Obviously, Braden Smith was amazing once again, 8 assists to only 1 turnover. But we really just kind of spread it out because of the different lineups we were able to put out there, and going way deeper into the bench than we usually did. We got assists from 9 different guys in this game. All the starters had at least 1 assist, and then you had Jacobson, Meyer, even Aaron Fine and Jack Benter all get assists off the bench. I think the big thing to highlight there was TKR having 5 assists of his own. He had the ball in his hands a lot in this game because we tried to get the ball to him when at all reasonable, because the way he had it going, I mean, he shot 8 for 10 from the floor, but also he made a lot better decisions in this game. He passed out in opportunities where it felt like, early on he was getting doubled. He had at least 1 or 2 assists early on there, with skip passes across, or just making the right read as they were trying to converge on him, as well as just throughout the course of the game. If he had the ball in a position and felt the presence coming, or saw somebody open across the floor, it was a great game for his vision and unselfishness, unlike some of the things I had seen and said recently, especially with like the Michigan game and opportunities like that. But finally, the turnovers, we only had 7, which is great. That's under our average, but also 3 of them were Daniel Jacobson. Not his best performance overall. He was 2 for 2 from the floor, but those 3 turnovers were a bit rough. Still, got to get better at handling the ball when we try to go inside to him. So really, if you are able to limit those by 1 or 2, or God forbid he gets 0 turnovers, we're under 5, which is fantastic. I think that just kind of showed the focus that we had in this game, and taking care of the ball, and really the way we kind of dominated their defense, getting kind of whatever we wanted, whether the shots were falling or not. We got the ball in the positions that we wanted to get it to. But going into the individual player stats, I've already talked about TKR a bit, but we'll go into him. 26 and 5, 6 rebounds, 5 assists is fantastic. And obviously that scoring performance is exactly what Purdue needs when we're able to get him the ball in the post. There are going to be some games where it's going to be very tray forward. There's going to be other games where not so much. I think this game specifically, and maybe we'll look to try to replicate this going forward, it's probably our best balance between forcing the ball or making a concerted effort to get the ball inside, and also being willing to take the shots from outside and score. We got open threes, unlike in the Michigan game where they defended the outside so well and just forced us to go inside. We were able to get things going on all cylinders, kind of like I talked about. But Trey specifically, he is looking more and more like the honorary or third team All-American that he was last year in some media outlets. And if we can keep building on that, if we can keep building on his confidence in the post and making those tough shots again, and making the right decisions down there, that all of a sudden really elevates us back to a position where, unless we're facing a defense that is really, really good at limiting our ability to do one or the other or both, our offense is right back up there with the best in the country. Obviously, efficiency-wise, we've stayed there, but it makes me continually more hopeful that we are starting to potentially peak here at the right time, even though we did just lose a game against the number 1 team in the country. So he had, back to Trey specifically, he had 4 offensive rebounds. Like I mentioned earlier, he's just a man on a mission. I also mentioned his 4 for 8 from the free throw line. We'll forgive him just because of how amazing of a performance all around, other than that, he had. So I'm never going to complain about the way he played out there tonight with his focused energy, not letting anything get to him, the fouls, whatever happened, he was laser focused. And that is the Trey Kaufman run that we need, no matter game script, no matter up or down. Next up is Fletcher Loyer, Mr. Perfection in this game. 18, 1 and 2 on a perfect 5 for 5 shooting, 4 for 4 from 3, 4 for 4 from the free throw line. When he is on, Purdue's confidence skyrockets. We got threes from him early. He got the crowd going. He got himself going. He got his guys around him going. There is something to be said about the way that Purdue plays a whole, solely whether or not Fletcher Loyer is making shots. As crazy as that is to say, it doesn't seem like something that should affect the entire team, but we know how good of a scorer he is and how good of a three-point shooter he is. The team just plays more open. The team just plays more confident. When he's on, when he's making shots, you give him the ball, they expect that ball to go in. Whereas you had some times earlier on this year where when Fletch was going through that slump, you get a little bit more hesitant to run our typical action and look for him because the confidence wavered a little bit. Not only Fletch's confidence in himself, but the team's confidence in when that shot goes up, expecting that to be a make because he's that good of a shooter. So again, peaking at the right time, if he's put that slump behind him and really able to lock in like this or just similar to this in so many games going forward, Purdue is so dangerous. Next up, Braden Smith. Once again, a quiet 15, 2, and 8. He played fantastic, but I have to say he was not the star of the show in this one, except for his defensive presence. He was 5 of 10 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, perfect 4 for 4 from the free throw line. Quite frankly, he could have easily gotten like a 20-point, 12 assist game, but he only played 29 minutes. We were up so much. It's the Painter style of let's not risk anything super crazy or drastic. I think it's potentially one of the things that's kept Braden Smith and so many of our stars so healthy over the course of their 4-year careers here at Purdue. But he definitely left a lot of stats out on the floor, but the other guys, really, stepped up in his absence. And again, other than knocking down a couple more shots, perfect game for him. 8 assists to just those one turnover, or just that one turnover that I mentioned. Um, he was in total control this game. Confident shooting his shots, even when a couple of them didn't fall, as well as his playmaking, his passing. He had some fantastic passes in this one, and again, he gets those assists when Purdue is on and knocking down shots. And we did an amazing job of knocking down those shots. And again, him on the defensive end, people have their knocks on his on-ball defending, but you cannot deny that he is one of the premier presences and minds and instincts for defending off the ball. His ability to sneak behind guys and pickpocket them or know exactly when to leave his guy and try to, go and make a play and get a steal, being that sort of center fielder, picking off passes. He is one of the best in the game at that. I am confident in saying that just because of his instincts are immaculate. That doesn't mean that he never makes a mistake. He had one in this game where I think he tried to make a bit of a gamble on a pass and missed, kind of flew by a little bit, and Indiana ended up with a bucket after that. And that's going to happen. It's going to happen sometimes. Obviously, you want to limit it. And I think he does a good job of limiting when he, tries to make those type of plays. So it keeps his percentage high and it keeps you thinking and noticing the great plays rather than him, making that one mistake there that leads to a bucket. But after him, Omer Meyer, legacy game. He had 18 1 and 2. Hilariously enough, I just noticed exact same stat line as Fletcher Loyer, except for Omer actually added a steal as well. He was 6 of 8 shooting, 4 for 5 from 3, 2 for 2 from the free throw line. He was electric. He has continued to get better and better as the season gone on. I honestly feel potentially, knock on wood, knock on my fake wood IKEA desk here. That Michigan game may have turned a switch on for this kid. I said in that recap that he just looked confident. He looked focused and way more physical than most of the rest of Purdue's players in that game. Well, it bled over into this game. He just overall has been so much better in the second half of the season. Since mid-January, his offense has picked up in his limited minutes. It's forcing Painter to find more minutes for him on the floor, especially if he's going to keep knocking down shots. In Purdue's last 11 games, he's up to 47% from the floor. I think he's on average 43% on the season. But more importantly and more specifically, he's shot 50% from three in that span. 50. He looks more confident, especially in the catch and shoot scenarios. Early on in the season, you saw he really was mostly confident with the ball in his hands and putting the ball on the deck to create a shot for himself. Well, now you're seeing kick out threes. His kick out three from Trey, where that was a clear NBA three, looked gorgeous. And in so many other scenarios, he's gotten better at being an off-ball player, and that's great for this season. It's great for him being a player overall. Next season, obviously, he'll have the ball in his hands a lot more, but he's just improving his offensive play as a whole and as a just weapon. I think especially he's kind of slowing down and getting his feet under himself in some of those catch and shoot scenarios, especially in transition. One of the gripes that I had early on is it felt like he was trying to rush things and go too fast. Shooting from a full sprint in transition, he would catch it and essentially be jumping while moving and not really getting himself set. And that's so hard to get an accurate, repeatable shot when you're shooting, jumping in every which way. So he's continuing to learn and get better. And I'm excited to see what the rest of the season may look like if he's continuing to be able to force his way onto the floor just by playing this well and knocking down shots. He can be another great three-point threat off the bench, as well as, again, it opens up the ability for Purdue to play a little bit more unique with the ball in Omer Meyer's hands and running Braden off screens, off pin downs, just to kind of switch things up and really make it difficult on teams' defenses. Kind of going through some of the rest of the guys, Clough had a 6 and 8 performance on perfect 3 of 3 shooting, which is great, and adding on a steal, a block, and a turnover. These last couple of games, man, Clough is starting to love these little instinct pickoff passes right at the top of the key as guys try to pass back to their center in the span of their motion offense. So this is his second steal in I think 3 games, if I remember correctly, and it's been very fun to watch, but. He was efficient when he had the ball, but I think the more important thing for him was he rebounded. All 8 of his rebounds were defensive rebounds, which has been a little bit of a flip from some of the recent patterns of him being such a dominant offensive rebounder. But at the end of the day, we need him to rebound, and getting 8 rebounds in his 22 minutes is much improved from some of his more recent performances, not named the Nebraska game. Kind of rounding out the rest of the lineup, you got Cox, Jacobson, Benter, Harris. I mentioned some of those guys earlier. So much was going for everybody else that, they didn't get quite as many opportunities. I think the only thing they really could have done was knock more shots down when they got the chance. CJ was 1 for 3, over 1 from 3. Jacobson was a perfect 2 for 2, so you can't really say that applies to him. But again, with those turnovers, he still doesn't look quite confident and, strong and grounded in so many of these scenarios. So look for him to continue to try to improve on that. And then Benter was 0 for 3, all 3 of those being from 3, and he was also 0 for 1 from the free throw line. So not his best performance, but when the ball's dropping for everybody else, what can you do? And Jakari Harris was 2 for 5, 1 for 2 from 3, so and also 1 for 2 from the free throw line. Great for him to knock that 3 down. 1 for 2 from 3 is never something to ever complain about off the bench. But he had a couple other opportunities that just didn't quite fall. But heading into some of the advanced analytics, looking at box plus minus, it kind of shows just how dominant Purdue was in this game. CJ Cox, the only one in the starting lineup with a negative score, also just with a mediocre performance at all. 17 from Braden, 25 from Fletch, 21 from TKR, and 20 from Clough. And looking at the bench, Omer Meyer with 30. Obviously, we talked about how electric his performance was, all 4 of his threes coming in the second half. And the best part of it all, your team leader in box plus minus, Aaron Fine. 2 minutes, 2 points. Hey, he was on track for a 40 point game if you just playing the whole game. So I think we got to fight for some more Aaron Fine minutes. All jokes aside, he was great to watch in those couple of minutes. Almost had an ugly turnover at one point there, but he recovered and had a just electric move to get to the basket. He is a fun kid to watch when he gets in the game. But overall, it just shows that obviously some of Purdue's bench guys didn't have great box plus minuses with some of the guys that struggled to shoot well, like Benter. But other than that, across the board, Purdue was just electric. Especially you look at those offensive rating numbers. The offense was clicking on all cylinders. But heading over to some of the rebounding percentages, it was It's a bit flipped from more recently. We've been talking about Trey as such an amazing defensive rebounder and Clough as that, you know, just dominant offensive rebounder, one of the top offensive rebounding percentages in the country for him. Well, the script was entirely flipped in this one. You had Oscar Clough with a 61% defensive rebounding percentage, which was amazing for his time out there. Over 50% means, it's a 50-50 shot when a ball goes up and it's a miss for the other team that is going to end up in his hands. And on the flip side of that, on the offensive end, to see TKR with a 31% offensive rebounding percentage, that's amazing. It proves both of those guys have continued to be active, and that's the kind of presence that we need from them out there. Obviously, Indiana, not a fantastic rebounding team, so it was a bit more expected in this one. But we didn't quite rebound that way against Indiana the last time. So it's truly in every game thing. You never know what's going to happen. So I'm always going to be pleased when those guys do what we feel that they are supposed to do, or even take it up a notch. And the assist percentage, I think the biggest thing to highlight from this is that everybody got involved. As I mentioned earlier when talking the assists as a whole, but you see 41% from Braden, and 38% from Trey Kaufman-Renn. Both of those guys did fantastic in their minutes, and just having a great sharing the ball day across the board. That's going to be key for Purdue as much as, we want the ball in Braden's hands so much. It's not always going to come from him. If Braden passes to somebody, that doesn't automatically mean that they need to shoot, that they're supposed to shoot. It's going to be some times where, those guys need to make a play and make a decision. And this one, they made a lot of the right decisions, and guys knocked shots down, whether it was coming from Braden or not. So all of that was truly great to see. And kind of just some of the biggest keys from the game as I sit and kind of think back in totality. The biggest difference between the first game and this one was the three E's that, hilariously enough, I remember seeing in my high school soccer locker room: energy, effort, enthusiasm. We just felt like we wanted it more. I mentioned Trey's energy right off the bat. You could tell that he was so locked in and had all of the emotions running through his veins. Everything was truly on, and you felt it in the crowd, you felt it in the environment. We got that going early. We established it and we kept it up for all 40 minutes. We didn't let it slip. We didn't let up, a big run. Purdue has been rather volatile at times this season with some of the runs that we give up. We, kept that on lock. And so many guys kind of built off that energy that it felt like Trey had, that Braden had, that Fletcher had when he started getting those shots to knock down. And obviously the paint crew, bringing all the energy for all 40 minutes there. We proved in this one that we wanted it more, and that was the biggest difference between this game and last one. Last game, IU wanted it more, and it showed on the box score and in the final score. Secondly, was the rebounding. I mentioned earlier that 30 to 15 differential, but the last game was only 33 to 28. So it again, the biggest, a massive difference was our ability to keep them off the glass and also attack the offensive end. No matter the opponent you face, how good of a rebounding team they are, or how lackluster of a rebounding team they are, like Indiana is on average. It has to be a concerted effort. It has to be a non-negotiable. And in this game, it was a non-negotiable. You saw guys crashing all around. It was a team effort, even outside of our centers, that did better this game than they did in the first game. And that makes, all the difference in the world, whether you're facing, and also whether the shots are falling down or not. It was only 30 to 15 in this one. I mentioned 33 to 28 in the other one. It does not matter if, you end up with 50 total rebounds like we did in the Nebraska game, or 30 in this one. It's that differential and the percentage of how you're getting that speaks volumes to the way that you played that game and the way that you rebounded. And Purdue did an amazing job in this one. And lastly is the turnovers. We flipped the turnover battle on them from previous game to this one. Last game was 10 for Purdue, and 8 for IU. And in this one, it was only 7 for us, while they turned the ball over 11 times. And that allowed us to get 16 points off of turnovers, something that we really weren't able to capitalize. We only got, let's see, 7 points off of turnovers in that first matchup. So just those little things, alone, each one of those stats, certainly has an effect on the game. You put all of those together, and that's the difference between scoring 67 points and losing this game by 5 and scoring 93 points and winning it by 29. So that's why you got to stack the little things. It's why you can't ignore those little individual stats, because they speak volumes in terms of the totality of their effect on the game. Um, but coming up next this Thursday, it's my return to Mackey Arena, long awaited. The Giannini family, most of us, sorry, Kim, will be converging on West Lafayette for the Michigan State Spartans coming into town, which should make for the third straight electric atmosphere and big time game in Mackey. It's just next game up mentality at this point. Screw rankings or Big Ten records, Big Ten regular season championship. Bring your A game. We'll bring ours. And when it comes down to it, I'm betting on ours. But that's all I've got for today. The madness is around the corner. And with that, potentially the return of a familiar face. There is so much content to make here in the next month and a half, but you can count on me to try to muscle through as much as possible because I just love this sport so much. But if you want more from us, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm out.